Hello, my friends. I am back. It's been a busy few weeks, to be honest. Start a new job, still doing the same thing, behavior therapy, and just craziness. My school started back up. I'm still in school. So today I wanted to talk about my ayahuasca ceremony that I participated in. It's been a while back now, but I actually haven't talked about it yet. I've done it here and there with some of my friends. I had a friend who does a podcast called Grounded in Presence, the Grounded Presence podcast. There we go. And he actually, you know what? Because this is a live recording, I'm going to start over because I don't like the way I started on this. Aha. Yes. And maybe actually turn it up just a little bit more so I can. Okay. Cool. All right. Round two. Salutations, my friends. It's been a while. Been busy the last few weeks. I'm just going to jump right into it. So today I'm going to be talking about my ayahuasca ceremony that I took part in a lot of while back. I haven't talked about it yet on the podcast as the full experience. I've touched on it probably many times because of the multitude of lessons that I learned from that and the practices that it basically gave me that I've still been practicing as of now. So let's just kind of get in. The title of this is Ayahuasca Ceremony, a lesson in imagination. Now, as always, we will get into that a little bit later, what the title kind of means, because it's like, well, what does that mean? A lesson in imagination. We'll talk about it later. So let me tell you a little bit about this. I've been wanting to do ayahuasca for a while, actually. I had heard Joe Rogan talk about it years and years ago. I've been listening to Joe Rogan for a long time. He's never done it, but he had talked about it. And some of the people he's had on there, like Aubrey Marcus, who I really like, had done ayahuasca and just talked about it. So I had put it out there saying, you know what? I would like to do ayahuasca. Let's see what happens. So I kind of had those feelers out there for, I'd say, a few years. And then at 2019, one of our really good friends said that she had done ayahuasca and that the shaman that she had done it with was actually going to be coming to Colorado and doing a ceremony, and that we could join in, that Jenny and I could join in on the ceremony. So of course we get, we pay the stuff. It wasn't that expensive. We end up, she gives us some instructions. The shaman, she's a really nice lady. Denise is her name. She gave some instructions. So she said, it was a few weeks out. So she gave us like, hey, 2 weeks before you come here, I need you to change your diet. I need you to not drink caffeine. I need you to not eat meat. I need you to not eat sugar. I need you to basically just have a cleaner diet. And the reason for that is this is what she told me, it will allow the plant medicine, ayahuasca, to work better if you don't have some of the things that are clogging it up, per se. So I did that for 2 weeks. Chipotle was my best friend. I love burritos anyways. So I just got veggie burritos almost every single day for 2 straight weeks. One of the other things that I did too was I found that I was drawn to, I like to listen to sometimes aggressive music. I listen to a little bit of everything, but I like aggressive music. I like something heavy, it'll punch you in the face. It's something that you can just like, yeah, I can take shit on. So for the 2 weeks, I actually listened to someone I listened to anyways, Ram Dass. There's a podcast called Be Here Now podcast that I love anyways, but basically I just went through and listened to not the whole catalog because they've been going for a few years, but I listened to a lot of Ram Dass to just go ahead and get me in the space. Actually, speaking of Ram Dass, on the YouTube, you can see him. There's a picture of Ram Dass. Big influence, right? So I was trying to get in the headspace, and that was kind of what this shaman was saying. I was like, hey, you don't want to come into this just like you're coming into a sacred space. Treat it as such. Don't treat it like something else, just this run-of-the-mill thing that you're going to do with your friends, which I was doing it with a good friend, and then, Jenny, my partner. So let's fast forward. So it's the day of the ceremony. The ceremony itself was in like one of the nicest house I've ever been in, actually. The guy who owned it is an amazingly nice guy. He actually ended up helping us get our house that I currently am living in and own. He helped us do that. And we met him through ayahuasca by coming over to his house. So his house is this amazing Colorado house in the mountains, huge. It has passive, what is it? What did he say? Passive solar. So just the way, I guess they used to make houses, and maybe they still do if they're smart, but they would make houses where they would say, like in the wintertime out here, you don't think about this in the South as much, but in the wintertime in Colorado, the sun, you get a lot more sun in the southeast, which is this way. You get a lot more sun that way, or southwest, I should say, just south. So they would make their houses have big windows in these areas, and that was just one of the ways you can have passive solar, right? So, anyways, huge house, like an hour and a half from where I live. It's in the mountains, absolutely gorgeous. I get there with my partner Jen, I get there with my friend Allie, and we're obviously the two people that live there, they're there first, but we're there first. Um, and then there's another couple, and then the people who live there, they're the guy, his brother. So there's 8 of us total. So me, Jen, my friend Allie, the 2 people who lived in the house, his brother, and then another couple, plus the shaman. So 9 people total in this. We were in, I think it was their living room, but they had taken all the furniture out, and it was just this big nice open space. So what we did is we made our own little pallets. So I had a yoga mat and I had like a blanket or something, and I just made myself a little area. I was beside this lovely lady named Sarah, who on the other side of her was her husband, and then beside me was my partner. She was, a little ways away from me, and then she was beside my friend and the rest of the people. The shaman was taking like center stage in the room. So I had cleaned up my diet. I had only been listening to things that would make me high, right? So high meaning like more loving, more caring, more open, more understanding, high, right? So here I am. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm nervous. I've never done any of that, and I have a tendency, anyways. Like I'm pretty sensitive actually to um, serotonergic drugs. So that would be like mushrooms, magic mushrooms, if you want to call them, LSD, MDMA, Molly, whatever, those types of drugs. I'm really sensitive to those types of drugs. So I always, like, when I'm going into something like that, I'm always a little nervous, as you should be. You should have some respect. No, you do it however you want, actually. I don't care. It's your life. But here I am. I'm nervous, and I'm already starting to stretch. I'm stretching. I'm doing some yoga, and the shaman looks at me. She goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I was like tapping my chest like this. I was like, "Oh, I'm just opening my heart." She was like, "You don't have to do that. You can just hang out for a minute. We're about to do some stuff." So fast forward to the stuff. 5 minutes later, we start to do some yoga together. To start to get into the headspace. And it's like, that's awesome. Awesome. So we do some light yoga, do some stretches, loosen our body up a little bit. Then we do some breathing. Fantastic breathing. So I don't know if you guys, I mean, if you've ever done yoga, there's like the yogic breath. So it's like belly, you feel it in your chest, and then you let it out. So the breathing was basically you blow up your belly, chest, belly, chest, belly, chest, And we did that for 10, 15 minutes straight, laying down. 10, 15 minutes straight. Literally tried doing that for 2 minutes. So the lady beside me was like, "I'm feeling kind of weird." And the shaman was like, "That's exactly how you're supposed to feel. If you're not going to pass out. And if you do pass out, guess what? You're already laying down, and you're just going to keep breathing. It's not that scary, but you're not going to pass out." My body felt like it was vibrating. This is before we had taken any of the ayahuasca. My body was like everywhere. And I could just feel like this loosening in the sense that my tie to my physical body was lessening in a good way. So we do that for 10, 15 minutes. Then after the breathing, we do what she called an anchoring meditation. This is actually the first time I'd ever done that. I'd heard about it from Aubrey Marcus, and it's something that I have wanted to do because, again, I sometimes have a tendency to get too far out, and like Ramdas would say, is like forget my area code. So we did this meditation where you visualize a golden chain from your heart all the way down to the core of the earth. So basically, it's like no matter how far you go out, you've got this tether that can kind of bring you back. So again, setting the intention. Now here, so we did this ritual. Like this is actually ritual, and before that, I'm skeptical of rituals and whatever the hullabaloo I would say. But I saw the like retrospectively, I saw the purpose of all this and the benefit of ritual because I could have stayed in my cynical thinking mind the whole time and just been like, what are these people doing? What is this going to do for me? Like the empiricist view, essentially. But it helped me get into the headspace of Mother Ayahuasca, which is what, come to find out, what are they called? Oscaweros. There's a name for them. Cool. That's awesome. So we're sitting in the circle now and it's time. And I'm just like, oh, okay, I've done all the things. I'm ready. But it's actually happening. So I forgot to tell you too. So one of the things that I found that I was having a mantra. A mantra is just something you repeat over and over again. I had a mantra that I was saying. There was a part of my brain that kept saying surrender, 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 which is very hard. It's hard for me to surrender. It's getting easier, practice, right? But we're so used to being in control. We think we're in control. We'll talk about imagination later, right? That surrendering is hard. And especially in the West, you want to be the boss, you want to be the take charge. And surrendering is the opposite connotation of that. It's going with it and not leading, right? So I had this mantra in my head, surrender, 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 surrender. It gets around to the room, it gets to my spot, and she's offering. So what she brought a container. It was like yay big of ayahuasca. The shaman is from this is what she said, right? I only know her from the ayahuasca ceremony. I know her as her role as shaman, right? I don't know her as a person. But she's from the Sacred Valley. Her and her partner are shamans in the Sacred Valley in Peru, and that's what they do for a living. And because she's from Kansas City, she makes trips up into the States and will do like essentially private ayahuasca sessions or ceremonies for people. So she had this container of ayahuasca that she had brought from the Sacred Valley. And one of my thoughts too was like, oh God, I hope I can keep this down because I've heard about how horrible it tastes. I have a pretty sensitive palate, right? Sensitive. I come to find out as I'm getting older, I find more and more that I'm getting more sensitive. Good way, mostly, right? So I get up there, and before you drink it, she says, offer a prayer. And so my prayer was, Mother, take me lightly. And I hope I hold this down. And then I just throw it back. The taste, actually, here's the funny thing. If you have a dog, there's like dog treats, like bacon flavored dog treats. It tasted like the way bacon flavored dog treats smell. So if you want to know what ayahuasca smells or tastes like, go smell some bacon flavored dog treats. So I surprisingly hold it down. Take my first cup. She said that we could take more than one drink if we wanted, but one cup, I was like, one cup, let's see what happens. So with any psychedelic, as you know, if you've done them, if you haven't, they take some time to kick in. It's not like alcohol where you can take a shot and then within like a few minutes, if not instantly, because of some stimulus pairing, you might start to feel drunk. It doesn't work like that on psychedelics. And one of the big mistakes that people make, they'll take too much because they'll be like, well, I took a hit and it didn't, I ate some and it didn't, nothing was happening for like an hour. And then I took another and then it was too much. And it's like, yeah. Because usually they can take upwards of 2 hours to kick in, right? This did not take 2 hours. It took about 30 minutes. So I hear my partner, Jenny, she starts gagging. And that's common, right? So in ayahuasca, you purge. And it can come to find out, it can look different ways. I had only heard about purging via mouth hole and butthole when people talk about it when they went to Peru. And I think, to my understanding, it is stronger in Peru. Like it gets diluted a bit just traveling with it, right? I don't know. I've never been there. Couldn't tell you. So Jenny, we all have garbage cans beside us, like these little, trash cans beside us, just in case. And she starts to like vom. She's the first one, and then a few others you hear just like just in there. I actually ended up not vomiting. I purged in a different way. Come to find out, one of the ways you can purge is crying is actually purging. Um, so it was interesting. So I started having the feeling. So I had this euphoric feeling, just starting to like seep over my body. And I started getting different mind visuals than I normally have. For those of you who don't know, I basically have constant closed eyes visuals. If I close my eyes, I see not just geometric patterns, I see geometric patterns, but I see like full on, like basically a way to think of it is like movies that are ever changing. Um, and they're fully colored, full detail if I really focus in on them. But one of the things that I think is kind of cool is because I am used to my sober state internal images. I can tell when I am under the influence of something, and that can be anything. Caffeine. I like to take this nootropic called Alpha Brain. Anything. So I noticed that my visuals are starting to change and they were becoming more watercolory. Whereas a lot of times I have very like realistic, vivid, hard angle, like it's hard pictures, right? But I was getting these lovely watercolor imagery in my brain. So I started, and here's the thing. So I was saying I was purging and crying. So what I noticed is I wasn't actually crying in like the boo-hoo sense, but I had tears just running down my face, and they just like kept coming. But here's the funny part is, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So it kicks in. Mother, take me gently, right? Well, mother heard my prayer. So for like, I don't know how long, it felt like 10 minutes. Okay, but when you're in that state, time is a little bit different. It doesn't feel the same way. But it felt like 10 minutes. And so I say for about 10 minutes, I had what I would call work. So is ayahuasca just showing me some things? Whereas, like, hey, here's some things here's some information about yourself. Here's some things. Here's a different perspective on that. And I'm actually going to get into that because now this is where I started learning some of my lessons. So one of my lessons that I had was I was going through a hard time with some clients. One of the things about my job is I work very, very intimately with people. I am in their homes. I am working with them directly, parents, and we're all on the same team, right? And one of the things that can happen is like I'm a pretty caring person, so I would take my job home with me. And not to mention, I had a client that I really liked, and we had a huge falling out with his family or his mom specifically, and which made it where I couldn't see him anymore, which I still haven't been able to see him since then, which I was very sad about at the time. But one of the first lessons it showed me was it gave me a visual. And so I told you I was seeing like watercolor imagery. What I saw was basically a pool of multicolors. And then I could basically go into one of the colors and it would show me a scene of something, and it would show me a scene of my life or whatever, or something maybe not that had happened, but it would take information from my life and package it in such a way where I could get new information. So for example, I was shown one of my clients who had past client who had a multiplicity of fucked up shit, like severely autistic. He had tons of medical issues, feeding tube, like all these different, um, and just medical issues, back to that. But because I can't give away too much information, HIPAA, right? But I saw him, and instead of thinking, which I had been in the mindset of, oh, poor pitiful guy, poor pitiful kid, right? I saw it as a soul who took a birth to teach not just me, but anyone he encounters. Because one of the things I saw with that kid was that and he was in pain a lot of the time. Like, if he wasn't drugged up, actually, he was in pain, which is a horrible existence, I think, right? But I saw him as a soul who took a birth that had lessons to give. Huh. And the way it was summed up for me, I got this very short message. So that was something else that the shaman told us. She's like, how can you discern truth that you're getting from ayahuasca, the plant medicine, and truth in your brain? And the shaman said, well, truth messages are usually short. They're not like a long sentence or a paragraph of information. They're usually super short. So here's my first lesson. Everything is beautiful. Everyone will be okay. Everything is beautiful and everyone will be okay. So one of the things that I was holding on to, and it was part of the culture of the place that I worked at, but we were basically told that we were safe. And it wasn't in terms like this, but that we were basically saving some of these kids' lives, that they wouldn't be able to have a life, quote, without our help. And that's like a really extreme way to think of it. But there also, you'll put a burden on yourself, because if you're the only person who essentially can help this person to put them on the right path where they can have a quality of life, then it's a big deal if you feel like you're not doing that. And so what I actually saw was that even if I'm not around, what I was shown is, even if I'm not around, everything is beautiful and everyone will be okay. So even the client that was discharged, my friend, because he was my friend, like all my clients are, like I treat them like my friends. Um, he's going to be okay. Even now, he's going to be okay. And it's beautiful in the sense that, well, much in the same way that a flower blooms or a tree blooms or grows and blooms, we are doing that. That's what life is. We're in this moment, this ever evolving moment that we call the present. There's no future, there's no past, there's only right now, right here. Where, do you know where I'm at right now? Right here. Do you know what time it is? Right now. Like, that's the way it is. And so, like a flower growing through a crack in the bustling sidewalk of New York City, life finds a way and people find a way, and everyone will be okay. Another thing I saw in my 10 minutes of work time, because that was something that actually did make me sad. So I already had tears streaming down my face, but then I was like, oh, actually, like crying a little bit. And I'm like, okay. Another thing I saw, the way it came to me was these are the words: conspiracy of mind. So ayahuasca showed me that I was caught in conspiracies of my own mind. What does that mean? I'll tell you. And this is actually, we're touching on a lesson in imagination. Because another way for me to say conspiracies of mind is to say imagination. In my imagination, I had these ideas about myself that were weakening me. So I'll give you examples. I'll give you, there's a few that were shown to me where I was like, oh, so good example. I've always felt like an outsider. Always have. Part of that is the personality package. I get that. I can be boisterous. I do speak my mind, generally, no matter who you are. And I do my own thing. Generally speaking, I do my own thing. I'm willing to do my own thing. But because of that, though, I have always felt like an outsider. Even though I've been parts of groups, I've still not always felt I've always felt like an alien in disguise. That's just an easier way to say it. Not that I've literally felt like an alien in disguise amongst humans. That's not it. But that's just the way to think is that even though I would be part of a group with people, there was still a distance that I'm not exactly like you guys. But here's the thing. I'm the only person who thought that. Do you know that? I'm the only person who thought that I was the outsider. Because in actuality, all the groups that I was in, I was part of that group. They weren't thinking of me like, well, Blake's that guy. Yeah, like he's with us, but also he's kind of over there in the corner, right? No. I was part of these groups, right? Here's another one. And this one has to be really old for me, right? Because I was born this way. But for example, my crooked lip, right? This, oh, for those of you who are just listening, you can't see, but I'm demonstrating my crooked lip. You should know me at this point. You've probably seen pictures, but like my grandmother used to call it Elvis lip, Sylvester Stallone. Like think of it like that if you haven't seen me. But one of the things that I didn't realize is that it shaped the way that I thought about myself. So I've, for a long time, thought that I was weird looking and not attractive. I know this is really kind of superficial, but it's just like the way we think about ourselves is very important, right? I talk about framing all the time, but not only how you're talking to yourself, but how are you viewing yourself? Because you might have ideas about yourself that are, I'm 31, that they might be 25 years old. You've had that idea since you were 6 and you haven't like re-upped on the idea. But so like I saw that because when I was a young kid, I didn't like my lip. It didn't look like everyone else's. I like actually all my pictures when I was a kid growing up, all of them when I the school pictures, my smile was like this, which is so nuts because I cheese so hard now, right? Yeah, I like my smile. Here's the real thing about it. For example, I had over the years women come up to me and express interest, and because I had an idea about myself, oh, I'm weird looking, I'm not attractive. I didn't believe what they were telling me, right? Because I had an idea in my head that was more real than the information, or more real than I was allowing the real information of objective reality, this person coming and talking to me and saying, hey, I find you to be appealing, let's go do stuff. But I couldn't hear it because it wasn't matching up to the information that I had in my head about myself, which was that I was unattractive. Now, here's the real thing about it though. Those were conspiracies of my own mind. No one else around me was telling me those things. If anything, they were telling me the opposite things, but I couldn't hear them. Why could I not hear them? Because I believed my own mind, my own conspiracies of mind. And a lesson in imagination, it's your imagination. You don't realize how many times you're honoring your future self. All right. So I'll give you an example because this is actually something that I've been practicing the last like 2 weeks, where I've just been a lot more conscientious about it. So I was sitting down. All my non-preferred tasks were done, so all my chores were done. I was basically done with all not fun things. Not fun is also an imaginative term, but whatever. But I was done with all not fun things. So I was sitting. I was like, you know what? I'm going to play some video games. I've done all my non-preferred tasks. I can do some video games. Preferred activity. Let's do it. I started playing, and then I started to feel anxious. And this is one of the tough parts. Hold on, sorry. Got a ball itch here. Here's one of the trippy things about this. So when I was anxious, because I like to reflect, so I was thinking to myself, why am I anxious right now? I've already done all my work. Am I behind on something? Is there something I'm not doing? No, no, no. Or yes, I've done all my work. No, there's not anything that I need to do. And no, there are not any things that need to be done. So why am I feeling anxious? And here's the reason why. I realized that in that moment, I had an ideal of myself, or an idea of myself, the perfect self, right? And it's a version of me that has done all the growth, knows all the things, and, you know, um, is creative and all these wonderful things, right? And so what I was actually doing was I was in essence honoring this imagination, this imaginative version of myself, not the real version of me. The real version of me was sitting and playing video games. That was where I was at in that moment, right? But I was projecting my imaginative self and thinking to myself, well, why don't I do something more productive, right? That's one of the traps, more productive. I could be doing something creative like making music right now. Because, and not that I'm saying this, but it's like I could be making music right now, dot, 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 because the best version of me never does leisure activities. He's only creating, is only productive, is only growing. Well, guess what? That's a conspiracy of your own mind. That's not real. That's not real. Let's be realistic. The real version of me in that moment was someone who was playing games. Did I feel like making music? No, I didn't feel like I did not feel called to make music. I get called to make music. I've been actually making some songs recently. Jazz music. What's up? But the real version of me was in this chair at this screen playing video games. And that's actually what I wanted in that moment. And so to honor that, it wasn't to be more productive or making music, it was to play the video game. And so again, what are you honoring? Or in what ways do you have conspiracies in mind? In what ways are you caught in your own webs? You know, there's that saying, we get in our way. It's like, yeah, no, 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 get the fuck out of your own way. Because in actuality, the way that you think about yourself and your life are the things that are entrapping you in those things. So here's another thing. Again, this was the 10 minutes. There's lighter things. There's lighter things, I promise. Because after about this 10 minutes, I spent the rest of the 8 hours in almost uncontrollable giggling. Yeah. So 10 minutes of intense and then like mostly just giggling the whole time. Like I really could not stop giggling. And it was just like just coming out of me. I couldn't stop it if I tried. It was hilarious. And actually a really funny story about that towards the end. So I saw too that another conspiracy of mine, and you might be able to relate to this, was that I am not enough. I don't measure up. I'm not good enough. Does that one sound like a familiar script that you run to yourself? Well, guess what? Here's the real thing about it. You're whole. I'm whole. That's what ayahuasca actually showed me. It was like, guess what? You don't think that you're whole and perfect? You are. And in any ways that you don't think that, that's just, again, you being caught in your own webs. So I saw that the root of many of my insecurities revolved around the idea of me not being enough. So, like for example, I call it the showman, this part of my personality that likes to perform and put on, a performance for people or groups of people, right? Or, I still like doing that. I used to seek that out. I used to have to be the center of attention. I used to have to perform for people because that's the only way I felt validated. I only felt validated if you gave me your attention and if I had the crowd's attention, right? Because then I felt like I was good enough. Well, guess what? Without the crowd, without your opinion or validation, I am good enough. And guess what? So are you. So are you. The only reason that you think you're not good enough, did you hear it? You're thinking it. All right. So we'll get on a little bit more lighter note here. This is actually what I wrote right after. Like I wrote this as soon as I was able. Basically, as soon as I got home, I wrote this before I like went to bed or anything. I wrote it as soon as I could. One of the things I saw too was listen to my inner voice. You might call it intuition, you might call it heart, whatever you want to call it. But listen to your inner voice. Listen to my inner voice. Ayahuasca showed me that I have an inner voice and that beneath all the busyness of my mind of, well, I need to brush my teeth. I need to go to the bathroom. What do I need? What do I have to do today? I need to eat. Who do I need to send out this text message? I have an email to send, yada, 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 yada. That's all just mind stuff. That's all just thought stuff. That's not you. All right. And those are just, they come and go with the wind. Actually, your thoughts, come to find out, are actually, when they say stream of consciousness, your thoughts are actually a stream or a river that's always running. And it doesn't need you to be aware of it to be running or going, right? Well, I say right. Well, because mostly I am talking to myself right now. And so, like narcissist staring into the pool, right, 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 right. The echo chamber of myself. But something that I found is that voice that I was telling you earlier about, that was saying the mantra, surrender, surrender, surrender. That voice was actually what I, since ayahuasca, have been identifying with as my real self, not the busyness in my mind. Because this is the way I feel this is where I feel my thoughts are. And this is where I feel like I am. Okay. And it's behind all of that busyness, behind all that loudness. In a lot of practices, they'll say, quiet down. What does that mean? What does it actually mean to quiet down? Well, it's like, well, just not pay attention to some of the loudness of your mind and see what happens. So I was taught to trust, or I was shown, hey, trust that a little bit more. Trust that a little bit more. Trust your intuition. You don't always need to be thinking about things to get information. And actually, that was something ayahuasca showed me too, is my brain is taking in information, whether I'm taking it in consciously or not. I don't have to read a paragraph about something and be like, now I know about space travel. Well, it's like Socrates said, actually, it's the substitute for real knowing, because you don't actually know. You read a paragraph and you know how to regurgitate those words, right? So trusting that voice, trusting that inner voice. I don't know what yours sounds like. Here's a fun one. I was actually playing with this. So I was laying there and I hear people around me, like the lady beside me was having, it sounded like kind of a tough time. Come to find out later, she was having a tough time. But I'm laying there and I'm playing with my consciousness and I'm saying, where am I? And this is actually a pretty, I've been told it's an advanced meditation. Sure, whatever. In the state I was in, it felt like the right thing to do. Not like I've practiced it. Maybe I have practiced it, but not like that. I've done it like a handful of times. But I'm in this moment, and I'm like, where am I? And so I start like just moving my awareness, moving my consciousness around, and saying, like, where am I? Am I my feet? No, I can feel feet, right? And I know where they are. Yeah, they're down there. I can move them. Okay. Yep. Move my toes. I can feel there's a window. I was beside a window. There was a window open beside me. I could feel the air blowing on my feet. But am I in my feet? No. Okay. Moving on up. Am I my leg? No. Am I my hips? No. Am I my stomach? No. Stomach had a little bit better of an argument. Am I my heart? No. Huh. I'm not my body. That's basically what I got to. I'm not my body. Then I went a next step further because again, I hadn't been able to see this, right? I had intellectually known this, but I wasn't able to see it and feel it in my heart. So another thing that I practiced was, because I've heard that this famous Indian saint, he might still be alive, Ramana Maharshi, the way he reached enlightenment apparently when he was 14, 15 by sitting in his uncle's study and just basically going through who am I, or what am I, where am I? And one of the next levels is emotions. And so one of the things was that I was feeling, I know the language is going to sometimes be confusing and a barrier here. So I'll say it like this, just to make it a little bit more clear, even though, yeah, all right, just bear with me here. So there was a feeling of anxiousness in the body's chest, my body's chest. But one of the cool things that I saw was that, well, earlier I had just shown I'm not my heart, my chest, right? Am I that energy, that buzzy tightness? No, no, where am I? I'm not here in the buzziness. My mind wasn't anxious at that time, or wasn't experiencing anxiousness. It was calm and quiet. And so I was able to watch that and be like, wait a second, I'm not that. I'm not that. You're not your anger. Now, here's the real thing about it. you can be swept up in the chemical response of anger, right? Because there's chemicals that are released once certain buttons are pushed, right? And once you're there, yeah, you're just going to be angry. You're going to act out anger is another way, is a better way to say that, because you are not anger. Now here's some of the fun. So I told you I had, again, like 10 minutes of intense, and it looked like a multicolored pool of water, and I would dive in to a color and see different things. Well, I started playing with what happens if I keep my eyes open. This was really cool. So I kept my eyes open and I was having these beautiful visuals. Like a lot of times on, if you've ever done LSD or mushrooms, things will kind of wave like this, or things will kind of breathe with you, you know. On this, it was like on the solar eclipse. I don't know if you looked at some of the shadows on the ground that were, being like the leaves, but basically it looked more like bubbles, right? So I was having more of these like bubble, um, visuals on the reality. And not only that, but the shaman, like a good shaman, she took the ayahuasca with us. She stopped being that lady. She actually, like, I was watching her, and her face was not there. I mean, not like she had a covering. And I forgot to tell you, one of the things she was doing was she was singing traditional songs. And I just, I just had my eyes open and watched her, because legitimately she became Mother Ayahuasca, like the embodiment of Mother Ayahuasca. And it was really cool because in a way, I was listening to my mother sing songs to me about how beautiful I am, how perfect I am, how loved I am. And it was in a different language, but that was what I was getting, right? It was awesome. And the visuals, right? Super cool. But then, so I'm laughing. I'm like giggling like that. I'm trying to keep it down, right? Because there's people around me having these really intense times. I had my 10 minutes of intensity. Now it's time for fun. So I get called to go outside. I just felt like, hey, I'm actually done with being inside. So I get my blanket up in a cape, which actually cracks me up immensely, because I'm like, oh, look at this. I'm a superhero about to fly outside. And I'm just laughing the whole time, just cracking myself up. I go outside, and this amazing deck of this house. Like, it's almost like a bungalow deck. It was like a half bungalow. So it went around a good portion of the house. Big deck, right? Beautiful deck. And we're in the mountains. So the backyard it's not even a yard. It's just mountains behind us, right? Fucking gorgeous. So here I am, and I'm making sounds. I'm snapping my fingers. I'm being really silly. I'm walking around, like balancing, doing these weird things, seeing if I can walk on one toe. Just a lot of fun things. I'm exploring, right? I'm exploring my environment. Then I look at this tree, huge cottonwood tree. Cottonwoods are really popular out, are they're really abundant out here in Colorado. It's like one of like 20 types of trees, maybe like 15 types of trees that grow out here. Huge cottonwood, like had to have been hundreds of years old, like maybe like 200 years old, right? Maybe even older. Fuck, I don't know. Gargantuan tree. I look at it and I get this visual. I didn't close my eyes, right? So it's like, you know how you can daydream, your eyes are open, but your attention's on the thought more than it is what you're seeing. Well, that's what was happening to me. So I look at this tree and I get this visual of this bird flying and shitting. And it shit out a seed, and there that tree grew. And here I am now, high, in a state of plant medicine intoxication, and I'm getting enjoyment out of looking at this tree that's hundreds of years old that a bird shed out. And then I got the message, everything is connected. And I saw how in that moment, actually, we are all connected, because that bird that shit out a seed that then came from, or this tree came from it. I'm sitting here, who knows how long later, and getting enjoyment out of that. So in a way, I'm connected to the tree, the bird, the tree when it was a seed, and the shit. And so that was one of the things. I got another visual of like, everything is connected. We don't actually know our true value as people. You don't actually know how influential you are. You don't realize it because you can't measure some of these things. You can't measure every single interaction that you have with a person as being impactful, but guess what? It actually is. So it matters when you go and you talk to the cashier, and if you're upset or not, and you're taking it out on them, because you could be the person in your anger or annoyance or your busyness to take out your frustration on this cashier, and now you've just pushed this cashier over the edge, right, over their edge, and then they're going to go home and maybe yell at their kids, yell at their wife, assuming it's a man or a woman, whatever, yell at their partner, right? So you, in essence, were in that fight because you caused it. You were the ripple that propelled that forward. We are all, in essence, stones being thrown into the pond and rippling out. We all affect everything, everything. And we just don't realize it. We think we're so small, and we are in one way, but we are very, very influential. And that's actually one of the things that, helped to lighten me up, because there's this part of my brain that's like, well, and again, it's my imagination, right? But it's like, you're special. You should be doing something. You can make a difference in the world. And here's the real thing. Our culture taught us that. Because actually, you are special. You're nothing special, but you are special in your own way too. You're uniquely like everyone else. Because we are all special little snowflakes, but guess what? A snowflake is a snowflake is a snowflake, even if it is its own particular unique crystalline structure, right? But we matter. You matter. Everything is connected. Another funny side note, I heard this animal off in the distance, and it was making like this. I can't even do it. My friend John can do it really well, but it's like this inhale pterodactyl noise, and it was making that sound. And again, I was hard giggling for hours. My stomach was actually like sore after the next day because it's like, oh my God, I was laughing so much. But I hear this pterodactyl like sound off in the distance, and all I could think about was my friend John is over there sitting in the bushes making this sound to make me giggle, which is not true. He was obviously not there. He's never even seen that place. Here's another interesting thing that I learned. I learned this ability to let go. That's not to say that I can let everything go, but there's just some things that you can just let go. And one of the techniques that Mother Ayahuasca showed me was just let it go. Deep breath in, attention, release and let it go. Just release and let it go. And that's a practice, because how many times have you not let stuff go? And all the times that you've not let things go puts more credence or more power into not letting things go, right? It's called behavior momentum. The more times you do something, the harder it gets to not do that thing that way. But just try it out. You feeling anxious? Let it go. You feeling depressed? Let it go. More so, let go of the idea that you shouldn't not be depressed or not be anxious, because that's actually what's causing the disconnect. Because sometimes, guess what? It's called life. You're going to be anxious. You're going to be depressed. Like if your mom dies, if you have a good relationship with your mom or your dad, like for example, for mine, if my mom died and I'm not upset and I don't get depressed after, that is not a good thing, right? We all handle things differently, but a lot of the stuff is that we think we have this idea of ourselves that is not depressed. The ideal version of ourselves is happy and doing stuff. Okay, but guess what? Where are you right now? Right now, well, literally right now, I'm still here talking with myself and you. Right? Where are you? When are you? Should be now, right? But that practice, that's something I've been practicing though, because again, am I honoring my future self, the future ideal version of myself, the version that knows everything? Like I said, the version of me that's already made all the growth, right? Or am I honoring the version of me that's still growing, that's still learning, that makes mistakes, that makes messes, that isn't always as kind and loving as the idea version of me should be, right? Hey, we're doing what we can. So here's something I found too: do less, be more. So, like, we're caught in this habit. Our culture tells us you need to be doing stuff, you need to be productive to have value. No, that's what collective psychosis, right? In actuality, if you're not comfortable sitting with yourself, so doing less and being more, so that means just being, right? Being yourself. What is it actually like to be you? Do you know that? Do you know what it's like to be you? To just sit and breathe and feel the way that you feel about things? Do you do that? Because our culture doesn't teach us to do that, right? And so we feel like we should be no, I just feel like I need to be doing something all the time. Okay, that's a problem actually, you know. And the idea of you, right? Again, right? The perfect version of me does all the things and gets all the things done in a timely manner and yada yada yada, whatever. It's not real. It's part of your head. But we're always doing things. Have you ever, which is, I don't know, I haven't thought about it. I'm hiking right now. That can be fucking annoying, right? But the real thing about it is we have this thing where in the midst of doing something, so hiking, we're thinking about the next thing that we're going to do. And then once we're on to eating, I'm in the middle of eating, I'm thinking about the next thing I'm going to do, right? Just take your time. Hike, eat, period, right? Hike, period, eat, period. Like, take time to do things. Like, food is fucking delicious. Hiking is fucking awesome. Experience it. Ultimately, I'll tell you this. I'm going to wrap up actually. Like with all things, like with all my experiences, I found that practice. So it's not enough that I was just shown the information, right? It's not enough that I have the information. I mean, and I'm not even doing this to be better. Like, I actually have stopped doing things to just be better at things, right? Because the point of doing things, doing anything, shouldn't be to get to be the best, right? Like, yeah, you get better. That's one of the byproducts of doing stuff over time and with attention, right? You put attention onto doing something over time. For example, I actually just started skateboarding slash longboarding. Just started. I literally never skateboarded or longboarded in my life. I'm 31 years old, and I've been practicing, right? Intentionally practicing, not mindlessly writing it. And I've gotten better. I've been able to do some transitions on and off the sidewalk now, like, not that big of stuff, but everything is a skill, right? And you gotta put effort into things. And so, like I said, these things are, well, I didn't say it like this. But it's practices. I was shown the information, and then what do I do with the information? Well, I try to use it because actually it makes my life better. It does make my life better to see that I might be the one who's keeping me in a box, right? Not anyone else. If someone else is keeping me in a box, guess what? That's their problem, not my problem. That's not my box. Your box of me is not my box, right? But what's more pernicious is it's my box of me, right? That keeps me in the box. That's really important information to have, right? For myself. Because if I can see that, then I can see the other ways that I'm weakening myself, right? Again, all the years I told myself I wasn't good enough, I didn't measure up, right? No, that was in my head. That was in my head. That's in your head. And yeah, you've had some life evidence where someone's like, well, you didn't do it good enough, like so and so. Okay, guess what? That's part of it. People are going to be better at things than you, right? There's Here's the real cool thing about it though, because again, we all matter, right? You might argue against that. That would be a fun conversation, but we all do matter. Okay? The way you think about things matters. The way you think about you should matter. And even if you had someone who said, well, no, you're actually not good enough. And that's evidence in your mind of like, oh, I'm not good enough. See, I knew it all along. This one Joe Schmo told me I'm not good enough. And yes, I've known it all along. That's the evidence I've been waiting for the whole time. Well, guess what? It's in your head. And if it's in your head, that means you can do something about it, right? Because that's your space, that's your territory. Your head is yours, your mind is yours. Make it work for you, right? Because you can be caught, like all of us, like me, right, in your own conspiracies of mind, or you can untangle them. All right, I am going to end it on that, friends. It was a blast. Have a great rest of your day. I will try to love you all. I can't say that I'm successfully doing that, but I'll do what I can. End this stream. Boom.